Alright, lock in because today I'm going to be giving my thoughts and recap on Australian Survivor Brains vs. Brawn II Week 5, which I'll say it now, it was a better week than Week 4, for sure. So yeah, enough wasting time, it's time to get in here. Right away, it gets into the merge reward challenge where the winner gets to go to this cocktail party and take people with them. Some interesting gameplay in general happened in this challenge. Really shouldn't be considered interesting, but it's going to be eye-opening for one person. But yeah, when AJ tapped out of the challenge, he talked to Kate and tried to get to know her since they hadn't met. And what was perfect for AJ was that he wasn't annoying Kate. He could talk to her for as long as he wanted. I like this play, especially since AJ has lost or is losing the trust of people like Logan and Karen, so it's time to make new friends. I like it. Very opportunistic, I'd say, but good players are going to seize the opportunity, so good for AJ. But someone that didn't like it was Karen, saying that AJ talks like ChatGPT or whatever. So it was funny to see that AJ's social game paid off as Kate took him on the reward and left Karen out. What happened was there was this like deal type of situation that Zara and Logan made with Kate where they drop out if she picked them for the cocktail party. So that's what happened. Kate picked Zara and Logan first, living up to her deal. Then she picked Morgan, Polly, AJ, and Kristen. I've got to say, I like Kate's picks. It's a good mix of everything. She gets to meet someone new in Logan, Laura's best friend, and that's nice because, hey, maybe reignite the Girls Gone Wild thing and add Logan in there. She gets to reconnect with some of the OG Bronze like Kristen and Polly, who she seemed to be working with at that Nash Tribal Council, but I'm not sure if they were really close because it's never really said if that was an actual alliance or an anti-Nash and Friends group because Brawn isn't going to win this season, but whatever, man. And she brings Morgan, so if there's an alliance that's made, Morgan can be included. I also liked how this assortment of people come with different stories, different narratives of how the game played out. Like someone like Logan and AJ were at the top of Brawn 2.0 and someone like Polly and Kristen were at the bottom. So she's getting all of the information. Couldn't have made better picks. Also, it works as revenge because Jesse ate all the meatballs. Speaking of that, one of my friends, Chris D0707 on Instagram, made a meme about that situation and it's so funny. Like, I'll leave it up on the screen for a bit. And yeah, go check him out on Instagram. Underrated guy for sure. Underrated comedy and unexpected comedy, I've got to say. But yeah, check them out. Getting back to the episode, something that I found funny was when Logan was trying to pitch this all-woman alliance to Kate, which was like all of them except for Zara and Karen. It's so funny how she said they made an all-girls alliance at the start, and look who's here. The entire alliance, because they stuck together when really it was anything but. The Coven has actually brought some of the most drama to this season, but I understand why Logan wouldn't want to tell the truth in Survivor, so I like it. She's playing the game. After this, there was a lot of reconnecting and meeting people for the first time, but the most important information came when AJ and Miles, the main characters of this season, I believe, they said that the potential targets are Logan and Jesse for straightforward votes. Maybe I missed something in my notes, but I am confused as to how Jesse became this straightforward vote consensus target. The only people that threw his name out there were the Girls Gone Wild Alliance, but that seemed to be mainly a Kate and Morgan plan, and I thought that Laura and Zara got sidetracked because of the whole advantage thing. Maybe Kate and Morgan put in some good work, but from the way that the show framed this, Kate first told AJ about the Jesse plan after the immunity challenge. So maybe Jesse was an easy target because, like what was talked about for most of this week, the Merge Tribe was running on a buddy system and Jesse lost his buddy. So maybe that's why he was seen as a consensus target that wouldn't really ruffle a lot of feathers. Plus, Kate and Morgan already wanted to target him. But yeah, from my perspective, not the best storytelling. Then they get to this immunity challenge where they have to stand on a seesaw and keep this ball on a track. Very interesting challenge, and I've got to say, this isn't new, but I like how the game is changing. In the pre-merge, there were a lot of these physical challenges like brawls and obstacle courses and such. Now, there's a lot of these stationary endurance types of challenges, which can lead to different winners. Someone like Kate sat out of most of the tribe challenges, but she won the first reward, so I like that the game is getting balanced out some, and there's possibilities for new winners. Getting back to this challenge, it ended in a Jesse versus Logan showdown where Logan won, sealing Jesse's fate. While Jesse was trying to stay Brawn strong and use Zara stealing Laura's advantage as a way to get the votes on her, Kate rallied her girls and got the numbers on Jesse. But she wanted to be safe and grab an extra number, so she told AJ about the plan, which I think was a big risk. She went on a reward with AJ, but is that really enough to know him? She barely knows him. All she really knows about him is the hostage stuff that seems to have been pushed to the side, to try and make new connections, which is understandable, but I feel like she already had the numbers that she needed, and she's giving a solid player in AJ a chance to counter and make a plan of his own, which happened as he tried to rally up some poly votes, but he just never quite got the numbers. Jesse leaves here in a very close vote, one where he had an outside chance of staying if he flipped his Zara vote to a poly vote, because that would have tied it. But at that point, it's a coulda, shoulda, woulda game that's not worth playing. Jesse was never going to make that play because he was never that type of player. For his whole run, he played a very boring game, always being in these big kumbaya alliances, never going to tribal council much and never really having to draw battle lines and play the game for real. I'd say probably would explain the purple edits for the bronze, because they barely did anything interesting, even though at points being in these big alliances was beneficial, I would say. But I feel like at the merge, you got to be willing to make new connections, and Jesse failed at that. He tried to stick to one group in a constantly changing game, so he was never set up for success. Also funny how Logan said, "This vote is about vengeance," which was funny in and of itself. She's really becoming one of my favorites, but she said this vote was about vengeance and voted Jesse out. This is for Max, when actually Jesse was the only one fighting to save Max. He wanted to work with Max, but had to give him up to go forward with his alliance. The person that threw Max's name out there was Kate, and I give her the credit for that move. So it's funny how this all worked out, and just speaks to the good game that Kate is playing, where she made the Max move but doesn't get the backlash. I guess because Jesse is a more dominant personality. Speaking of Kate, she finally made her big move and outplayed AJ, someone that's really being hyped up in the edit. They want him to be this King George type of player, and he got outplayed here. So look at DJ Chaos Kate, man, so inspirational. Big dub. But I have to question, while it was a big move, while it was impressive that Kate was able to rally all of those votes, I have to question, was this really a good move? Jesse might have been a dominant personality, but he wasn't dominant in the game, and with no Ben, he really had no ability to make anything happen. She said that she needed to finish the job because she already threw Jesse's name out there, but why throw Jesse's name out there in the first place when they were in a nice position on Brains 2.0? Why let a Brawn number go when they're in the minority at the merge and Jesse was completely loyal to them? My take is that I don't think that Kate got rid of this big and impactful player that was going to be a problem for her, and she probably just took out one of her numbers. But I like it somewhat because Jesse's name was already out there and she didn't give him the chance to find out and plot against her. And by just voting out an easy name, she secures trust with the women that she wants to work with. I think it's a move that has positives and negatives, and the only way to find out if it was a good, bad, or just a potentially fine or average move is to just let the game play out and see what happens. Going over to the next episode, probably the most hyped up one of the week, the beginning section is mostly all about Paulie being on the bottom. He's talking about being on the bottom. The women were talking about wanting him out next and sort of laughing about how he was complaining about no one checking in on his injury because he took a torch to the face while walking to the previous tribal council. Something subtle that could be something, could be nothing is that, okay, they were laughing about no one checking in on Paulie's situation. Then shortly after this, the edit highlighted Kate checking in on Paulie while everyone else kind of just said hi and walked past him. This stuff got me thinking that, one, Kate's really playing the game for sure. But also, I think the edit is trying to make her rootable because up to this point, I see no negativity around her edit. I don't think she's winning because like she was a side character until episode 11, like got her intro package 4 weeks into the show, but there could potentially be some longevity for her, and I'll explain that later. But yeah, the beginning was all about Polly and how everyone has buddies except for him, which isn't necessarily true. Kaylin doesn't have a buddy, but I guess like he's just good with everyone. Anyways, they get to the immunity challenge, and it's just so funny how quickly everyone started dropping out of this challenge when Polly lost because they felt so safe because he was so far on the bottom. It leads to a Kaylin win, which is inconsequential, but congratulations to him. In the interest of saving time and not going through every single conversation, I'll just say that all of the talk was Polly until Laura came up with this plan. This is the buddy system episode because everyone has a buddy. When they got to tribal council, they even had everyone sitting next to their buddy. Like, it was so obvious. But yeah, Laura wanted to break up one of the buddies, which was PD and Kristen, because PD will never work in her favor. Despite PD not being a big player, I like this thought process, and I'll talk about it more at the actual vote. But she goes around gathering up the numbers that she needs just for the plan to fall through because Logan wanted Polly out and was tired of the game being dictated to her. It's so funny how this episode was all about buddies just for Laura to not even check in with her buddy before she went around telling everyone the PD plan. Because of this, she had to backtrack and say that the PD plan was off when she wouldn't have had to. She wouldn't look like such a frantic player, wishy-washy player, if she just talked this stuff over with Logan first. Also, it's worth asking, if Laura wants PD out, but Logan wants Polly out, then why are they even aligned? Why is Laura backtracking on the plan for Logan when she already put in all of this good work? She already talked about how getting rid of PD might get Kristen closer to her, which sounds smart, so why is Laura giving up her whole game for Logan here? Last week, in all 3 episodes, it was talked about so much about how Logan and Laura are best friends forever and they're gonna run the game when, first off, I thought that came out of nowhere. They barely did anything together, but also they seem to be incompatible and have different interests here. I don't like this gameplay from Laura here. I think it's either check in with Logan first, or now that the plan is out there, like, you have to go through with it. So they go to tribal council where basically it's just Polly pitching to stay in the game and saying how like being unbuddied can possibly be an advantage. And right as JLP was going to start the voting process, Miles used his advantage to take Kristen's idol, somewhat surprisingly, but also not really by the time it happened. Then he played the idol for Polly, negating everyone's votes except for his, AJ's, and Polly's, and they decided to send PD home in the last vote before jury. Now for PD, I don't have a ton to say about him. He's the last of the purple Brawn guys that I sort of predicted would get pagonged at the merge, and while it didn't happen like how I expected it to, with Ben leaving and all, and like no twist that I predicted was going to happen, and Kate and Morgan decided to flip, which I wasn't expecting, but it still happened. Like, it's still the result that I was expecting. PD seems like a solid guy, and I'll say that I'm glad for him that he left. I know he wanted to stay in the game, but he only had one good arm, and I'm glad that he could leave and like probably get like the proper medical care. But yeah, that's all I have to say about PD. No idea where he's going to be in the eventual end of season player rankings, and he just wasn't a player that the edit highlighted, even when he got his injury. Also, crazy way to go out when he told AJ and Miles that he doesn't care where the split is, just to be the split and have the majority wanting to keep him in the game. But yeah, what I left out was that while all of the Polly talk was going on in this episode, there was just AJ and Miles in the background plotting. Kaylin told AJ about Logan's idol, which AJ told Miles about, which gave Miles options with his advantage. Also, there was all of this talk about simple moves and no battle lines being drawn and wanting to pick up Polly as a number. So, it's time to question, was this big move a good move. Surface level, it's probably not, at least in the immediate future. Miles talked about wanting to make a new buddy, and while it's nice that, in theory, Polly is completely loyal to Miles and by extension AJ, at the end of the day, the whole tribe voted against Polly. Miles and AJ went against the whole tribe for this and got themselves in a position where, since they just made this big move, no one should be looking at defenseless Polly anymore. They should be looking at Miles and AJ. It's kind of funny how Polly even became this massive threat in the first place. In Kate's voting confessional, she said, "You're a fabulous person, but your gameplay is tragic," which was so funny, but also it got me thinking, like, why? He's just been at the bottom and everyone says he's a snake oil salesman and there's nothing that can be done about it. Maybe it's because he flipped on Noonan, but she was a sinking ship and she was the reason why the OG Bronze couldn't take over the numbers because of that petty rivalry with Ursula, where Polly was probably the most rational player in that situation. But yeah, getting back to AJ and Miles, this is something that in theory should bring the women plus Kaylin closer together and uniting to take out AJ and Miles because they lied to everyone and are untrustworthy. The only thing that kind of makes sense is getting rid of a buddy system, getting rid of a pair of 2 votes that probably aren't going to vote your way and leaving the other person in, so maybe you can pick them up as a number. That aspect makes some sense. So I don't question, like, why PD over someone like Logan, especially since getting out Logan now would probably ruffle more feathers than PD, but that also ruffled a lot of feathers anyway, so it is what it is. Also, I agree with the decision to take Kristen's idol because she was planning on playing it for PD, and since it was a public idol, there's almost no risk, whereas if Miles stole Logan's idol, that's a secret idol. That's a move that displays to everyone that Miles is really playing. He's dangerous and he has like all of this information. But the same thing sort of happened with this move. Like, it's a mixed bag of a move for sure. Flashy move, but probably not the best move to go all out to save Polly. What I wanted to see was maybe some more people on Miles's side, knowing that this was going to happen, so then he has that backing. But then the plan could possibly get blown up, as this was the first time I've seen this advantage get played correctly, because what usually happens is the player with this advantage tells people and gives others the knowledge and power to plan around the knowledge is power advantage. It's a mixed bag of a move, but it was entertaining and it made me like AJ and Miles. Now getting to episode 15, the episode that wasn't hyped up. Back at camp, everyone's mad at Miles and AJ. Kristen didn't even want AJ to touch her for a hug, which is hilarious since Miles was the one that took her idol, and Logan was having a complete meltdown, like it's Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the meltdown, and this stuff is going to come into play later. Kind of funny how Miles told Logan that Laura is smart and rational and will get over it, which implied that Logan isn't smart and rational, which, he's kind of onto something. Like, he's not completely wrong, because it seems like Logan's always complaining about stuff not going her way, which is sort of rational to want the game to play out in your way personally. Like, everyone should strive for that, but the complaining is probably a turn off. I'm not saying that Logan isn't smart, but like, I can see where Miles is coming from with this. But yeah, like I said, it was a questionable move because they told no one, and now everyone except for Polly is mad at them. So where are their numbers that they're going to move forward with? Why did they just put themselves on the bottom for seemingly no reason? I guess it's good that Miles basically has full control over Polly, which is only good for him, because even though people like Laura, Kate, and Morgan wanted to save Polly, they ultimately didn't and tried to vote him out. So he's a Miles number, which is good, but after the move, I just can't see where Miles's numbers, like where the Miles army is coming from. That was until he said it was time to get the graduates back together, and out of nowhere, everyone was okay with it except for Karin. So that's just confusing, but I guess. So because he has the graduates minus Karin, but plus Polly, that move, whether it was good or bad, like he got a positive outcome. Next, they went to this reward challenge, like basketball in the sea type of challenge for an American feast, which I've got to say, as an honest American, while potentially offensive, like they nailed it for sure. So much unhealthy stuff over there. And it was so funny to see Americans get singled out and dunked on like that. I also sort of like that the teams were randomly selected. For the first reward, Kate got to pick, but for the second reward, maybe you go on a reward with someone that like you would have never talked to, like you never would have worked with. So I think there should be a good balance of these two reward styles. The only thing of note in this challenge was that Morgan kept on throwing the other team's ball back to their side when she should have threw it behind them deeper onto their side, giving the other team more ground to cover before they can shoot their ball again. But whatever, man, they didn't win. AJ, Miles, Polly, Karen, Kristen, and Kate won the reward, and Miles said exactly what I was thinking. Kate has been on a bunch of rewards, which makes the meatball thing even funnier. I'm gonna have to rewatch the season again, but from memory, out of the reward challenges that they aired, the only time I can remember when she didn't get a reward was the sausage sizzle thing when she and Morgan were standing on the pegs. Anyways, the most noteworthy thing that happened at this reward was Miles telling everyone about Logan's idol, which got the ball rolling in her direction. And back at camp, the remaining graduates, Kaylin and Zara, talked about how they weren't going with this AJ and Miles split vote plan that was proposed. Kaylin won yet another inconsequential immunity challenge, last gasp, and back at camp, the war finally broke out. The Logan and Laura versus AJ and Miles war. They told each other that Kristen was the target, but no one was really believing that. It was just all out social warfare. The way I saw it, it was like this AJ, Miles, Polly, Kaylin, and Zara side versus this Laura, Logan, and Kristen side trying to get these like Kate and Morgan votes. Then Karen was in the middle, being part of the graduates, but wanting to flip on AJ. But I question her gameplay because it's like she wanted to have this perfect position by getting Logan to burn her idol and voting out AJ, but like she's not really committing to anything. Even at the vote, she told Logan to play her idol and voted for Logan. So she's probably not good with Kristen and Logan, and there's a possibility that Logan tells someone that Karen told her to play the idol and Karen could lose Zara. I'm so confused about Carmen's gameplay here. But yeah, AJ and Miles won the day as they were able to eliminate Laura because of the minority vote split. I like Laura. I think that she was the more logical player of her and Logan, might just end up being higher than her on the player rankings. And yeah, I kind of felt bad for her that she was taken out over Logan, but also Laura self-destructed her game a lot by trying to hold on to Ridge and being paranoid about the Girls Gone Wild Alliance and changing the PD plan because Logan didn't like it, only for Logan to outlast her in the game. I liked her as a personality, but I don't think that she played an amazing game, but at least she made jury, so that's a W. All right, so I was talking about being confused about Karen's gameplay, but I'm also confused about Kate and Morgan's gameplay as well. I questioned their flip on Jesse and the Bronze, but it happened and they got themselves into a good spot with the Women's Alliance. Then, when Logan complained about not getting her way at the previous tribal council, this made Kate want to ditch her because there's too much drama around her and she wants too much control, so they flipped over to AJ's side because they like him. But to me, it made no sense because they were at the top of the Girls Alliance. Then they wanted to vote out Logan, one of their numbers, and now they just flipped to the bottom of AJ's Graduates Alliance, where I don't really see an end game for them. Firstly, they're at the bottom of it, like they're not OG graduates, and they're kind of just there because of AJ. Also, until Miles says otherwise, I'm assuming that Kate isn't in his in-game plans because he already tried to get her out on Brains 2.0 because she was social and could be good at the individual challenges, to which he was somewhat right because she won the first reward challenge and she organized the Jesse blindside and seems to have good relationships across the board. People want to work with her and like no one wants her out. She's a powerful player that you shouldn't take far in the game, so maybe that comment by Miles comes back around now that he's in power. Maybe Kate is good with AJ, so that might protect her some, but what are Kate and Morgan's relationships like with Kaylin, Zara, and potentially Karen? Also, because of this buddy system stuff, getting rid of the buddies, that probably means that Kate and Morgan, like one of them, are probably next up. And I think it could be Morgan because at least Kate has a relationship with AJ, probably the main character of the season, and she has a better edit than Morgan. But yeah, I just don't understand this flip. I have yet to understand any of their flips going back to the Candy vote. They were in a good spot with the Brawn guys and had power in that until they flipped to the Girls Alliance. Then they got in a dominant spot with the Girls Alliance and they won the day and beat AJ. They even got in a position to extend him an olive branch. Now they flip to the bottom of AJ's graduates where there's no indication yet that they're part of anyone's in-game plans. And last time Miles talked about Kate, it was about wanting her out. Questionable move for sure, but hey, they are surviving and I think it can get them some short-term safety over someone like Logan or maybe Karen because AJ doesn't need her anymore now that he has Kate and Morgan. Like he said, his allies are replaceable. But yeah, it's just unfortunate for Kate because I thought that when she got that episode 11 intro package that she was being set up to be a big character at the merge when really, the way that I see it, she's being set up to be an important character, a relevant part of the story, but not her own story. She's a big part of AJ's story and his dominance. Like, he put in the work with Kate and got her to ditch that Girls Alliance for him in a spot where he was 1 vote away from a tie and 2 votes away from being eliminated, and those 2 votes could have been Kate and Morgan votes if they stuck with the Women's Alliance, but they didn't because they like AJ. That's kind of how I see it. I like Kate and Morgan. Like, I think they're solid players, never seriously being targeted yet, always in positions to pivot and make moves and like be crucial votes. Also, they, but more specifically Kate, they don't wear their emotions on their sleeve and play illogically in a season where everyone makes emotional moves based on petty rivalries and makes it known who their enemies are and tries to strong arm people into moves by giving them ultimatums and has meltdowns when their plans don't go their exact perfect way and happily passes on information that no one should know about, like burning hats and finding idols and such. They're just chill for the most part. I still remember Morgan saying that Ursula was a Nash puppet and getting into an argument with Nash at that tribal council. But yeah, for the most part, they're chill, and that alone makes them top tier players on this season where no one can chill, like no one can resist self-destructing their game. But for right now, at this point in the game, it would be my pleasure to talk about their gameplay positively, but I just don't see the logic in any of their flips. I like that they have the power, like they have those options, but why? It would just be nice to have some confessionals for once. Even though Kate's getting more confessionals now, it's still not enough, and Morgan should get some confessionals as well. It's kind of like when Ben was the spokesperson for those like 5 OG Bronze and they were treated as one character. Now Kate is the spokesperson for her and Morgan, and they're basically just one character at this point, really. So yeah, I'm just disappointed that there's just no Morgan confessionals, and it kind of seems like they're just going out of their way to not show her. But yeah, all of that to say, I think they're good players, but now going forward, I kind of see them as numbers in the AJ gang and they're just waiting to get cut somewhere along the way. Could be wrong, could be completely jumping the gun and making my own version of the game and how it's going to play out. Like, never know, but that's just how I see it. I think they ruined their games for AJ, but hey, like just let the game play out, see what happens, then reevaluate with more information. Like maybe there's a backup plan, maybe they integrate more within that group next week. Like you never know. But yeah, speaking of AJ, for my standout players of the week, it's both AJ and Miles for stuff that I already said earlier. AJ secured the Kate and Morgan relationship that saved him in the end, and now they're honorary graduates potentially. Also, Miles secured the Polly relationship. Like, he is the reason why Polly at least made jury. So Polly owes him a lot. So I'm just looking at AJ and Miles's numbers, and in the immediate future, it seems like in a 10-player game right now, they have themselves, Polly, Kaylin, Zara, Morgan, Kate, and potentially Karin, but even if they don't, they still have the majority full of people that want to take them deep into the game, and they have tons of flexibility. They can even afford to chop off a buddy system like Morgan and Kate, probably keep Kate, and still keep going forward with the graduates and have the numbers. They've done some good work this weekend. I am aware and open to the game always changing, but I think they're set up nicely, so they have to be my standout players for this week. But yeah, that's all I have to say about Australian Survivor, Brains vs. Brawn II, Week 5. Stay strong, stay brutal, because above all else, it's anything to win.
I won't let you down, Bruce. I'll keep fighting. Always.